65 CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Do you guys like to fish? I know I do, and springtime is the perfect time to stock your pond or lake with fish such as brim, threadfin shad, and tilapia. Or are you looking for top quality automatic fish feeders, aeration systems, and fountains? If that is the case, then you need to contact Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries right here in Tuscaloosa. You can get in touch with Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is 205-799-0192. Contact Honey Hole Fisheries today and let them help you build the lake or pond of your dreams. This is the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition, we are going to do a very deep dive into the Final Four matchups, including Alabama and UConn. Plus, we're going to talk a little SEC baseball as well. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. Guys, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get things rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out, you're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good, kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah, but then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9. With the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And we want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. Hope all is well. And guys, before we get going on the Stingray Show, I do want to bring up what happened last night. We had an interview with Diamond Dallas Page. However, we were not able to put all of it on the air due to time constraints. I do want to let you guys know that if you guys are interested in hearing the full Diamond Dallas Page interview with him previewing WrestleMania, you can find that in two locations. The first one is on my YouTube page, Stingray26, as we will have the video portion of the interview there. And then, of course, we've got the audio version on our podcast, The Stingray Show on Spotify. Just look for the DDP on The Stingray Show.
Yeah, Road to WrestleMania ends this week, and DDP talked about a lot of things. He talked about the Rhodes family and very much in depth, talked about his relationship with Cody, and that is a very deep family friendship. And, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all that turns out. What about you, Steven? Are you thinking the American Nightmare is going to pull it out? You think Cody Rhodes is going to do it?
I do. Honestly, I do. I think it's time for a change because Roman Reigns has been leading over the SEC, the WWE for a very long time, and I think it's time that somebody else goes to the top.
Well, there you go. It'll be interesting to see, especially with The Rock coming in and Rock going Hollywood Hill again, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I am not going to predict how that's going to turn out because it's wrestling and they can change their mind in the middle of the match. Like, you know what? We're going to stick with Rock for a little bit, or we're going to stick with Roman and we'll do this again next year. I mean, you never know. You never know.
So, Heath, getting to college basketball briefly, did you happen to hear what happened to UConn last night?
No, what happened?
They had some travel issues leaving Hartford, Connecticut, going to Phoenix because the plane that was supposed to pick them up did not arrive from Kansas City due to technical and as well as mechanical issues.
Oh, wow. Well, it's not that too big of a deal for college kids. I mean, they stay up all night anyway, so, I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
I don't know, man. Jet lag and plus a 5-hour flight, which was supposed to pick them up at 6, did not pick them up until 1:30 in the morning. That could play a factor in that game coming up on Saturday.
It could, but you got to remember they got Thursday night to recover, they got Friday to recover, they play the game on Saturday, so it could. But I think they'll be all right. They're college kids, man. They stay up all night.
So, Heath, let's go on ahead and do something that we like to do, but we have not done it this week, the National Day of Today. And the National Day of Today is going to be pretty interesting today because today on April the 4th is the National Vitamin C Day.
Interesting. I wonder why, but
It
okay.
is also Jeep 4x4 Day. It is National Chicken Cordon Bleu Day. And the biggest one, it is National Burrito Day.
All right. Interesting. I wonder why it's National Jeep Day.
Now, Heath, I do want to mention we don't have a show tomorrow due to Alabama baseball, but I would encourage all of you to eat a deep dish pizza tomorrow because tomorrow on April the 5th, it is National Deep Dish Pizza Day.
And what city brought us the deep dish pizza, Stephen?
Chicago?
That is correct.
I did not know that. I just took a stab out of the dark on that one, man.
Well, there you go.
So I do want to ask you, going back to today, what are some of your favorite ingredients on a burrito?
I love verde sauce. I love the green sauce, man. I like the red, but I love that green. If you put red sauce on my burrito, it doesn't bother me. I still eat it. I love it. Because tacos are my friends and so are burritos.
Yeah.
But, a little sour cream, of course, cheese. I'm okay with lettuce and tomato. I'm okay with a little pico. Yeah, it doesn't really bother me what you put on my burrito. I'm going to eat it no matter what.
Guacamole too?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big guac fan.
Yes.
Love guac.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, guys, go on ahead and head out this evening to your favorite Mexican place in Tuscaloosa or wherever you are listening to this show and indulge in burritos for National Burrito Day, my friends. All right. So, Heath, before we go to break, briefly, Monday night, who do you have playing in the national championship for college basketball? I'm going with the favorites, Purdue, UConn, for a chance to win the national championship. Who's your final game?
I got the same. I think Purdue can do it. I'm not putting any money on it, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
I think UConn's the most dominant team. I think Purdue can do it, but I don't know, man. It makes for a better storyline if Purdue wins.
Yes.
But we'll have to find out. That's why we watch. That's why we love March Madness. That's why we love it. That's why we watch. But yeah, I'll be tuned in.
I tell you what, though, the better storyline for college basketball would be Alabama, North Carolina State.
Oh, I mean, you would have a madhouse of ratings if those two teams got together. Yes. It would be the highest watched basketball game, championship game probably ever, because you just would not know how that's going to turn out.
So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we've got to take our first break, and when we come back, we are going to do a deep dive of college baseball with Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, and then after him, we are going to talk Final Four with Tim Brando. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. We will be right back with Southeastern 14's own Chris Lee.
I'm afraid the championship game's going to be a blowout. I don't even know who's going to win and be in it.
Yeah. Do you guys like to fish? I know I do, and springtime is the perfect time to stock your pond or lake with fish such as brim, threadfin shad, and tilapia. Or are you looking for top quality automatic fish feeders, aeration systems, and fountains? If that is the case, then you need to contact Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries right here in Tuscaloosa. You can get in touch with Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is 205-799-0192. Contact Honey Hole Fisheries today and let them help you build the lake or pond of your dreams. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group, right here in Tuscaloosa. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Watch for an accident north on I-359. Approaching 15th Street, we also have an accident on Lurleen B. Wallace Boulevard south at 7th. And also an accident McFarland Boulevard eastbound just past Hargrove. An accident.
Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis. And visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you. Our guest this evening that we are about to get to is a guy that we talk with once a week, usually from Southeastern 14. Ladies and gentlemen, he is locked in and ready for the Final Four as well as another weekend of SEC baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome to the Stingray Show, Mr. Chris Lee. Chris, how are you doing just days and minutes and hours away from the Final Four?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how compelling the matchups will be. I think it seems like each team, the favorite's got a decided advantage over the underdog. But in the case of the SEC school we cover, I think there's a case that Alabama makes it interesting. On the baseball side, we're getting into almost the midway point of conference play. We're third in now. So that's getting interesting. We got some great series. So it's going to be a fun weekend, and hopefully we got the bandwidth to monitor it all.
Chris, we'll go to baseball because everyone's going to be talking about the Final Four. But baseball, real quick, what matchup are you looking most forward to this weekend?
Oh, goodness. I mean, honestly, most of the matchups this weekend are compelling. I think Vanderbilt LSU is compelling.
That's the one I'm watching.
Not been playing great on the road. LSU is 2-7. I'm very interested to see how the pitching matchups go this weekend because I've got some questions on both sides about who even is going to be thrown as we're doing this. I don't think the pitching rotations have been released. I think Alabama, Kentucky's interesting because Kentucky's played so well. Texas A&M at South Carolina, that's an interesting one. South Carolina on the right weekend can beat just about anybody, particularly in Columbia. I mean, Auburn, Tennessee is interesting because that's an Auburn. Auburn, I think, is due to win some games here. The schedule has been brutal so far. I mean, Georgia, Mississippi State's good. I think two teams that I think right now, if you picked the field of 64, would both be in there. Florida, Missouri, can't find a compelling storyline there other than it's on the road. So in the SEC, we know how that's gone. But I think it's a league where there's a lot of parity and a lot of good teams. And so just about any given weekend, you can make the case that any series is interesting.
And for those of you wondering, LSU will not have to worry about the Vandy Whistler because the game's at LSU.
Well, I'll say this about LSU. If Vanderbilt takes 2 or 3 from LSU, if not all 3, I'm giving LSU a standing 8 count for the rest of the season. I mean, they have started off SEC play really bad. They have not looked good in any series yet. If they drop this one, I'm giving them a standing 8 count, and I think it's going to be a third year in a row that an SEC team has won the national title and has just fallen on their face the following season.
So, Chris, I do want to get your take on something else in the world of baseball, and that, of course, is the last time that Alabama went on the road, it got swept at Georgia. This weekend, they go on the road starting tomorrow night at Kentucky. Do you see Alabama getting swept up in Lexington by the Batcats?
Probably not. Those are two completely different matchups. Georgia I think, leads the country or is second in home runs, and the ball gets out quickly at Foley Field. Now, Kentucky is the exact opposite matchup. It is a keep the ball on the ground team. It's a beat you with running and doubles and all sorts of things. I think Alabama's got a good enough team to at least take one there, but life on the road in this league has been treacherous so far.
Horrible.
Yeah.
So, Chris, let's go on ahead and transition and move to Phoenix, Arizona, the site for the Final Four. I want to get your take first on the first matchup of the evening on Saturday. That, of course, is DJ Burns versus Zach Edey in Purdue versus NC State. How do you see that game playing out?
Well, it's the two big men who are the talk of the tournament. But I think one is Tennessee found out is going to be a little harder to handle than the other. I mean, Burns has had a great run, but he's playing the ball of his life. Zach Edey, also had maybe the game of his life against Tennessee. But my point is one's been a little more consistent than the other. Purdue, I think, was the number 1 percentage 3-point shooting team in the country coming into the Tennessee game. So it's not just Edey. And now look, him being there gives his guys a better look. But here's the point. I just think Purdue is more talented. I think with Purdue just getting to that point and getting the monkey off Matt Painter's back, I'm not going to say NC State's going to be easy, but I feel like some of the heavier part of the lifting is done. Now, look, if seeds play out, they get Connecticut, and good luck to anybody beating Connecticut right now. But to me, it's just hard to fathom NC State having another game in this run because I don't think it's met a team like Purdue yet.
Chris, looking at your bracket, how many teams did you get in the Final Four? I only got 2. We had Doug Gottlieb on the show earlier this week. Doug knows more college basketball than anybody else on the planet. He only got 1. With that, did you get anybody in your Final Four?
I got Connecticut. That felt like an easy one from the jump, even though it was in a tough bracket. I had Purdue and Creighton in the Elite 8. Had Creighton winning that game. Thought, man, I would like to have that one over. I never believed in Houston because of the injuries. You saw that play out. And I had Arizona coming out of the other one by default. Yeah, I got 1, which is probably putting me in company with a lot of people.
Don't feel bad. Everyone bought the Arizona hype, including me and Doug Gottlieb, and we both had them as national champions.
Oh my, yeah. I never hesitated on a championship pick. That's for sure. I had Connecticut, and I've still got Connecticut.
There you go.
So, Chris, let's go ahead and talk about it. You just talked about that team right there, the UConn Huskies going up against the final SEC team in the tournament, the Alabama Crimson Tide. How do you see UConn and Alabama shaking out there in Phoenix.
Well, look, if UConn brings the team that's just steamrolled everybody in the last two SEC tournaments, it's won it's 10 games by like 270 points. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
I mean, the 30-0 run against Illinois. Illinois, I think, was the number one offensive team in the country on Ken Palm. I don't even know how you do that in this day and age of parity. I don't know what the secret sauce is, into getting an elite team to play at an otherworldly level, but it feels like Dan Hurley's figured it out. Now, look, if there's a recipe for an upset, I think it's an Alabama-type team. We all know about Alabama's issues, maybe with post defense and with defense in general, but if you're looking for an out-of-the-box outcome, it would be a team hitting like 23-pointers. Which I don't know that Connecticut's going to give that up. But if any team could pull it off, it's the one that Connecticut is playing.
Mm-hmm.
I like Connecticut to win, but there is a little bit of a squint a little bit and see how this could happen with Alabama that's not there with a lot of teams. Now, I think the defense will probably do Alabama in, but there's at least a path here during a season where it's hard to see a path for anybody beating these guys.
So, Chris, as always, thank you for taking time to join us. Enjoy covering the Final Four and an amazing weekend of SEC baseball, and we will catch up with you sometime next week.
Yeah, it's a good weekend to have two TVs, and I'll be using them both.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you, man.
See you guys.
So, Heath, that's going to wrap up the interview there with Chris Lee. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by none other than Timmy B. Tim Brando. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with the gentleman who calls the iron is unkind. Tim Brando is next. It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations. Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant Bank.
Sure, I'm pulling them off. 24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football. Alabama touchdown. Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Are you you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show, and now we are going to get to the Final Four preview, and in order to do that, we are about to bring on a guy who is a legend in the broadcast industry and also has covered UConn a bunch this season, as he has on the Fox Sports networks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about our dear friend, none other than everybody's favorite announcer, Mr. Tim Brando. Tim, how are things going with you at Chateau Brando?
Well, of all the introductions I think I've ever gotten from you, Stingray, that might be another one.
Thank you, man.
No, that was wonderful. I appreciate that. And Heath, you're looking cool. It's good to be with both of you. It always is.
Timmy B, I am a mile under the weather, but I'm always happy to be with you, Timmy B.
Well, thanks, man. This was, you caught me, before I'm, gonna run over and pick up my clubs. I'm gonna play a little golf while I'm in Arizona, on Friday morning. And, but I'm gonna get there tomorrow afternoon. And, so my last real road trip, if you want to see me in an airport, tomorrow and Sunday are your last days, because I will not be in an airport until almost September after this trip to the Final Four.
Very nice. Where are you flying into?
Going into Phoenix tomorrow, and I'll be there for the Saturday semifinals. I do some work every year at the Final Four for the National Association of Basketball Coaches. I MC their Champions Luncheon, which they do for all of the regular season champions from NAIA, D3, D2, and D1. That's a Sunday morning affair. They call it the Champions Brunch. And I also MC a couple of their forums that they have during their convention. People, fans don't necessarily know about it, but it's true. There are a lot of decisions made, a lot of jobs that are being interviewed for in lobbies all across Phoenix, Arizona, for jobs that maybe you don't even know exist. Okay. Yeah. But assistant coaches, many of whom are on staffs that might have been let go. So there's just a lot of decision making going on, and ADs and presidents of universities as well as coaches are all on hand at their national convention. The National Association of Basketball Coaches hold their convention when they're all together at the Final Four. And years ago, when I was just starting out, and I met Mr. Gowdy, I met Kurt Gowdy, he always emceed that event. And I've now been doing it for about the last 20 years. And really, when I stopped calling games for CBS and the NCAAs, and the Tim Brando show was still going on back in those days, I used to do my show live from the hotels in the lobby there, where all the coaches were. And it was like a who's who of college basketball would pop in and be on my show. We did it there every day, Thursday through Monday. I would stay through Monday in those days because I had a show to do. And it was a lot of fun. And since then, since 2014, I've continued to go because the NABC wants me to continue to be a part of what they do, and I'm always happy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tim, before we jump into the Final Four games, would you please speak on this magical run that NC State has been on up to this point?
Well, there's for fans in the Southeastern Conference that are, almost as old as me or maybe a little bit younger than me, certainly those that are older than me, were alive and were around when Jim Valvano made that incredible run.
Right.
Yeah.
Something to remember, they had to win too. Okay. They had to win every game in their conference tournament to get to 17 wins. They were actually 17-10. This North Carolina State team was 17-14 after they won their ACC tournament championship, after they won the 5 games.
Right.
But the tournament was different in that there were only 48 teams in the NCAA tournament in 1983, not 64. We went to 64 after the 84 season, starting 1985, the year that Rolly Massimino pulled off his incredible victory over Georgetown. They had just gone to 64 at that point. So getting in the tournament was even harder if you were up against it like Jimmy V's team was in the ACC. Now, remember, in 83, you had to go through, a North Carolina team that had Michael Jordan. You had to go through a Virginia team that had Ralph Sampson. And this was when college basketball was, from a media standpoint, bursting at the seams. College basketball, maybe not so much. Well, yeah, I'm going to say it. Even in the SEC, college basketball was bigger then. Wimp was in the middle of 4 straight Sweet 16s. He had a team that had gone 16-2 with Jimmy Farmer and Mark Gottfried and all that team that lost to Billy Donovan in 87. That team, from 84 through 87, right during that period, Alabama was playing in every SEC tournament championship, every one of them. And they won the regular season on many of those occasions, in addition to getting to the finals of the tournament. And, you got Hugh Durham at Georgia. They went to the Final Four in 83, the same year NC State did, without Dominique Wilkins, but with Vern Fleming and a lot of other great players that were on that team. People forget that Georgia was even in that Final Four, but they were, and they lost to NC State on that Saturday semifinal. And then the other semifinal game was Phi Slamma Jamma with Akeem Olajuwon against the Doctors of Dunk, the Doctors of Dunk in Louisville with the McRae brothers and, so many other outstanding players that were on that team for Denny Crum. And the Georgia NC State game was sort of an afterthought. But even, the Big Ten had great teams. The ACC was flourishing, as I mentioned, with the Jordan era. They had won the national championship in 82 against Georgetown. Everybody had, and basketball, college basketball in those days had players that stayed in school at least through their junior year. Yeah. So you had an identity with all the teams. Everyone knew who was playing where. Okay. And so college hoops was really big at that point. We were only 15 years removed from the Elvin Hayes, Lou Alcindor game that was nationally televised in 68 at the Astrodome when they filled that place. We were only 4 years removed from the Bird Magic final, which many people claim was the game that transformed not just college basketball and the Final Four, but also the NBA, because the NBA was in horrible shape. Their games were being playoff games, championship series games were being replayed after the local news on CBS in those days. They didn't want to even put it in prime time live in those days. So college basketball really was flourishing, and it was actually helping propel the NBA, which was really struggling as a professional sports league at that time. So what Valvano did, and that miracle run, in my opinion, was the greatest miracle run we've ever seen in the history of college basketball, even greater than Villanova's win over Georgetown. You could argue that Villanova played a better game and had to against Ewing and Reggie Williams and Michael Jackson and those guys that were playing at Georgetown. But they were, an 8-9. They played in the 8-9 game. They weren't an 11 or a 12 seed. They weren't a team that had to win every game in their conference tournament to get in. Okay, right. Villanova had been good all year, been competitive in that 85 season with St. John's and Georgetown, who also made the Final Four that year. The Big East had 3 of the 4 teams. Memphis State was the only other team that was in that Final Four. So if you can remember that period, that time, this is the only thing you can really compare it to. For NC State to be there as an 11, maybe we can talk a little bit about Dale Brown's run as an 11 seed in '86 when they beat Kentucky when they played them a fourth time in Atlanta, and they also beat a Georgia Tech team that was a 2 seed. They actually beat a 3, a 2, and a 1 seed to get to the Final Four in Dallas that year. Of course, they lost to Louisville with Never Nervous Purvis in '86 in Dallas. But getting to the Final Four for that team and what LSU had gone through with defections and injuries, and they had an outbreak of chicken pox in the middle of their season. You can compare that a little bit, but because it's NC State and because it's where Jimmy V coached and they went all the way and won the thing, that's what everybody's comparing this to, and understandably so.
So, Tim, hold that thought because we're up against another break, and when we come back, we are going to dive further into the Final Four matchups. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their spring plant sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We've got some slowing on northbound Highway 69 from 15th Street to Mid-Lowry Road. It's a 3-minute delay. Eastbound on Highway 82 from Airport Road to Jack Warner Parkway. It's a 3-minute delay. Ongoing construction on McWright's Ferry Road. It's being
Resort.com. Lone Star. Saturday, May 25th, Pearl River Resort's Silver Star Convention Center. Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well. Our guest this evening is Tim Brando, Mr. Timmy B, known for the iron is unkind when talking about college basketball. But Tim, I do want to get your take on a story that is going wild right now in sports media, and that is the issue of the story that came out about the women's basketball coach down there in the state that you live in surrounding the LSU women's basketball team. Give us your thoughts on that entire situation, please.
You know, I've known Kim Mulkey since she was a player in Pigtails, playing for Leon Barmore and Sanja Hogue. at Louisiana Tech, which I always chuckle when I hear fans of women's basketball and even commentators of women's basketball when they say that Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma put college basketball for women on the map.
No, they didn't.
No. They certainly took it to a grander stage. They elevated the national perspective on women's basketball. I did a lot of those games when I was at CBS. UConn and Tennessee would play twice a year because they were so much better than everybody else and everyone was going to watch. And that was a game that you could put on network TV and have more than, say, 2 or 3 million people watching. So, and I worked with a variety of people on those games. But anyone that's really followed women's college basketball from the time Title IX came into effect in 72 and until the NCAA finally adopted the women's game, which wasn't until 1982. Okay. Right. I mean, that's all those championships, all those great players that played prior to 82, you can't even find them in their record books. Right. Caitlin Clark, she passed Pete Maravich as the all-time scorer, and that's great. But there were unbelievable players in women's basketball that had played at places like the College of Immaculata, at places like Delta State, at Louisiana Tech, where college basketball in the old AIAW, okay, that was who sanctioned women's basketball in those days. They had Final Fours too. They had national championships too. But the NCAA didn't recognize any of their records, any of them. So, don't tell me that, that there wasn't, a really solid basketball being played. The difference was the big programs at the major schools weren't invested in women's basketball until after 1982. And that allowed some of these smaller schools to flourish. They could be great at something. They could be the best at something. And they were, for the most part. And that's a wonderful thing. And Kim was a part of an AIAW title at Louisiana Tech. And she was part of a national title that was recognized by the NCAA at Louisiana Tech. And she was an Olympian and won a gold medal in 1984. She was the point guard for the United States team that year. Played with Cheryl Miller and so many of the other greats that were a part of that. But Kim, to answer your question specifically, she was a lightning rod leader, tough player, as all guards have to be. And she wore those little precious pigtails and looked like the girl next door. But when the game started, she'd rip your heart out. I mean, she would rip your heart out.
Not much has changed.
No, not much has changed. I mean, her competitive spirit as a coach is very similar to that. And her value system, her core values. She came from a broken home. And everything she got because she was great as a basketball player, but she was also valedictorian of her senior class in small Tickfaw, Louisiana, which borders with Hammond, Louisiana, about 30 miles southeast of Baton Rouge. She was a force of nature, as a player. And she was also one of those kind of those players that you love to have as a teammate. You'd hate having to play against her.
Right.
Okay. All the things that they're saying about Angel Reese today, okay, were said about Kim Mulkey back then. All right. Forget the race thing. Forget the generational thing. I'm telling you, she was a force of nature, and she played hard. She played tough, and she pissed off her opponents. All right. Well, as a coach, it's not dissimilar at all. Okay? Right. And what has happened here, in my view, fellas, with women's basketball and specifically the way the media is handling the LSU basketball program, the women's basketball program, is a direct result of the way the media feels about Kim Mulkey. And this is the way I believe the media feels about Kim Mulkey, okay? They don't like the fact that she did not support what was going on with COVID while she was at Baylor.
Yep, they crucified her over the mask issue. Yeah, I remember this.
They don't like the fact that she was not totally supportive, okay, completely supportive of Brittany Griner when she was imprisoned. Okay. And by the way, what Brittany Griner did was illegal and wrong. I mean, it was. You can't carry that kind of stuff with you when you're in another country. You can expect to be, I mean, they made movies about, hashish in Turkey years ago. You can go back and Google that, and I think you'll find out about what happened. No matter who you were, if you've got that kind of paraphernalia with you, you're likely to run into some trouble. And Brittany Griner did. But the media did not like the fact that this was a woman that was conservative in her approach and was going to be hard line with anyone questioning her from the media about how she conducted her program. All right. That just pissed them off. And that's the reason why the Washington Post decided to do this piece. Now, I thought she erred by having a press conference beforehand, because all that did was increase the interest in the article being written. Somewhat it indicated to her that it was going to be a hit piece. I looked at it. I don't think it was a hit piece at all. I think it was a profile of her background and who she was. I thought the writer, in some cases, was pretty fair in terms of giving her credit for going through all that she did. Hadn't talked to her dad in 37 years. Hadn't talked to, siblings in 4 or 5 years. By the way, who among us has perfect relationships with our siblings or maybe with parents when you came from an estranged background? That's happened to a gazillion people. But for all of that to be airing and in an article that was coming out on the eve of the Sweet 16, it came out on the very day of the Sweet 16 game with UCLA. I mean, the timing of it was understandable from a media perspective, but for her not to take umbrage with it, I understand that. But in reality, the hit piece came from the LA Times. Los Angeles Times writer who decided to call Angel Reese and all the other players on that team, most of them black, dirty debutantes.
Just wrong.
Was just wrong. I mean, that's just,
100% wrong.
That is injecting race and injecting.
I agree with that.
Into a story that didn't need it. And all that does is fuel people on these things, all right, to go after the players, and specifically Angel Reese, who's been in the spotlight for the things she did. I don't even see you and get my ring ready and all that stuff to Caitlin Clark. She's been living that for a year. I just think, bottom line is this, okay? The women's game should be celebrated. There's a part of media that wants to tell us now that the women's game is bigger, better, and more entertaining than the men's game. Stop. Just stop.
Right.
Okay? They're two different games, and there's nothing wrong with being happy with both. There's nothing wrong with enjoying both. But to diss the men's game because the women are what? Different? Because the women are women and the men, have their best player. And this part of it too now, Zach Edey is the best player in men's basketball. He's the best player. All right.
Yeah.
But the NBA says his style of play is not suitable for them. They'd rather a 7'5" guy, stand out at the 3-point line and be a stretch 5. That's what they think. I don't give a rat's ass about what the media that follows the NBA.
Tell them, Timmy B.
Okay?
Tell them.
This is the college game, okay?
Yeah.
And that's just garbage. It's absolute garbage. And there were 12 million plus people that watched, and I think that was wonderful. But the men's game has been A, more profitable, B, more watched, and C, as tradition rich as it's ever been. The fact that their stars don't fit the mold of what the NBA writers in the left side of media, the left-wing media wants, doesn't mean that the game is any less important or any less enjoyable to watch than the women's game. So get over yourself. This is part of the media trying to tell us what's important. And I absolutely defy that. Can we just enjoy it without somebody telling us that while we're enjoying it, we should say, well, the men's game sucks. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's what the media today Okay. That's the propaganda machine that we're having to deal with. And I just tell people, get it out of your minds, separate the two and enjoy them both.
So, Tim, hold that thought because we are up against our final break. And when we come back, we are going to dive into the final four matchups and get your take on both of them. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be back to finish up this show with Tim Brand. Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their spring plant sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know
money back guarantee.
Text support to 511-511. Morning Kick.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back, SEC fans. You're listening to the Stingray Show. I'm Heath Hopkins, along with Stephen Stingray Ray. Our very special guest and friend of the show, Timmy B. Tim Brando is joining us. And Tim, I wanted to ask you this before we went to the break. Mm-hmm. You know, the craziness of what Kim Mulkey had been dealing with. I mean, look, let's just call it what it is. The left side of the media lost their marbles when she wasn't, all in on COVID and wearing the mask, and she made fun of the mask during her opening press conference when she's hired at LSU, and they just went after her. And then this past week, her team doesn't come out on the floor for the national anthem, and the conservative side of the media just goes after her. Yeah. And then the dirty debutante thing falls in her lap, and the social media thing that she's oblivious to. All of it just came crashing down. And poor woman, she ain't got, she can't do what in a pot and has a window to throw it out of.
Well, let me tell you something. She's very comfortable at being uncomfortable.
I see that. And that's why I like her.
Yeah, she's very comfortable at being uncomfortable. And like I said, I'm not always on Kim Mulkey's side politically or on and certainly not on her side when it comes to handling history as it relates to where the game was and who did what and all that. Right. All right. But you are so right when you say she gets it from both ends. Yeah. I touched on what the left wanted to try to accomplish with the piece that was done in the Washington Post. And then actually I thought that was fair. I didn't learn anything new. Right. But I thought it was a profile of her. And yes, some of it was negative, but it was all, we all have negative aspects to our past. We just have to own it. We just have to deal with it, which I believe she has. But when I saw what I did both on Twitter And then later, people were trying to bait me into writing something about it. I was never going to do that because no matter what sports you're covering, whether it's the NFL or it's college, any sport, college football, whatever it is, there is not a protest being there. There's no protest by a team when they're not out there for the anthem.
Correct.
That's not a protest. Hey, we're taking care of our business the way we take care of our business. So if her team had come out and they had hit a knee, or if they had decided not to pay attention, then to the anthem, then okay, if you want to take some shots, go right ahead.
Right.
But to just say that she's, and the governor, who by the way is a new Republican governor in the state of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, he took her on. He said something about it. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go there. I'm not that far right. Okay, I am a compassionate conservative that will, on occasion, vote for a Democrat if the Democrat is a better candidate than the Republican. All right, that's just who I am.
Thank you.
But this woman, and you're so right, she gets the blank and the blank from both ends of the radical side of politics in the country and in media. And as I said, though, she's perfect for it because she's really comfortable at being uncomfortable.
So, Tim, let's go ahead and get off of that topic and move to the games that you were actually going to see in person on Saturday, the Final Four. UConn has been blowing out teams the last 2 years in the NCAA tournament. How does Alabama slow down UConn, or can they?
I'm going to tell you if you get a chance, read a young colleague of mine, young friend and burgeoning great broadcaster, John Fanta. John is an energetic, enthusiastic kid that went to Seton Hall, and as soon as he got out, he started broadcasting. He does every sport imaginable for the Big East, and he's started to get some high-profile games with us at Fox and FS1. He wrote a column in Fox.com, FoxSports.com, where he had coaches that are coaching against UConn this year and former coaches, great coaches like Jay Wright, who had coached against them in the past and are now analysts nationally. And he actually had me too. I don't know why I got included, but he asked me. I think because I had about 5 games of theirs. And if not for that ice storm in January, I would have had them 7 times this year. The thing about the Huskies that makes them unique and makes them arguably one of the greatest teams of all time in college basketball is they have so many answers no matter what adversity they may face. Early in the season, and I had the first game I had with UConn, Donovan Clingan had just been hurt, and he missed 5 games early in the season. And Clingan is the 7'2" rim runner that last year was a backup to Adama Snogo. Clingan's gone for 5 games. They won every one. Samson Johnson goes about 6'8", 6'9", is faster than Clingan, can jump out of the gym, and they really don't miss Clingan when he's not out there. Okay. Tristan Newton, who is an underrated point guard, could have been player of the year in the Big East. He was a transfer from East Carolina. East Carolina. He's developed into one of the best pure point guards in the college game. I think what will be interesting in this game with Alabama is, as good as Newton is, he's taller. He's a converted combo guard. He was a scoring guard, a 2 guard, before he got to UConn. He had to learn to play the point. You can make a great case that Mark Sears, because of his size, he's got kind of a Jalen Brunson of Villanova thickness about him. Right. He's shorter than Tristan Newton. And that allows Sears to get into places and get into the paint and use his dribble drive to create open shots for people like Stevenson and Pringle, who were obviously very hot in the regionals and did the job for Alabama because they were sticking the shots. Sears has to be great in this game. He's got to find a way to neutralize Newton. And by that, I mean, don't stop him. I mean, just get a few steals. Guards will always tell you this. I remember Mookie Blaylock when he played at Oklahoma, and I did a lot of his games with the Hawks in the NBA in the mid-'90s. Mookie had a hell of a time trying to guard Muggsy Bogues. Muggsy Bogues when he was playing in Charlotte,
5'3",
just ate Mookie's lunch. Mookie was he'd come out of the game frustrated. Mookie was normally a little shorter than most of the other point guards in the NBA. Like, if he was playing against Magic Johnson, Magic hated it because Mookie was underneath him. He could get under him.
Right.
Well, it was great revenge for all of those that hated going against Mookie when they saw Muggsy Bogues eat his lunch, because Muggsy was strong. He was really small, a mighty might. Sears is somewhere between a Muggsy Bogues and a Jalen Brunson to me. So that gives Alabama, I think, a fighting chance in this game. But again, remember, you have to score with Connecticut. That's the problem. Marquette was close, 18-18 in that 1-4 game that we had in Hartford at the XL Center, and they had Tyler Coleman, okay, but Oso Ighodaro got a second foul with about 10 minutes left in the first half. They went on a 20-2 run. It was ball game, okay. Yeah. So all of your players at every position on the floor have to be at their very best. You can make a mistake. You don't have to be perfect, but you got to be close to perfect. And you got to continue to score because UConn demands that you score. I've heard a lot of Alabama fans this week talking about, well, if we get to 89, I think they're 20-1, 21-1, something like that when they get to 89 points. Well, you better get to 89 because Connecticut's going to get to 90. You better, I will be shocked if this game is a rock fight or a 60. Right. Game in the 70s or the 60s. I think it's going to be upper 80s to 90s, might even get close to 100. You have got to score.
Yes.
Connecticut, because they've got answers all across the floor. They got a kid, Jalen Stewart, a seldom used freshman, and another one from Greece named Rugaloo. They can shoot the lights out. They can go 11 deep. 11 deep and not miss a beat. And these guys are all guys that fit into certain slots on the floor for Danny Hurley to call on if there's an issue anywhere. I think that's the one chance that Alabama has, is to play them close, find a way to have a 1-point lead with the shot clock off, and Connecticut having to bring the ball down the floor knowing that if they don't score, they don't win. Because you can practice that all you want, guys, but until you've done it in a game, when you got all these guys that can score, who's your go-to guy when the game's on the line?
Yep.
And at Connecticut, I don't know that we know who that is. As great as all those players are, I don't know that Danny Hurley knows who the player is that he would turn to with just seconds remaining to make the basket that wins a game if it's all on the line with one possession. So you can hope for that if you're Alabama.
So, Tim, enjoy the Final Four and the national championship, and we will catch up later on down the line.
Take care, fellas. Enjoy your spring and summer.
Thank you. All right, man. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. We will see you back here on the Stingray Show next week, hopefully on Monday night, for a preview before the national championship game. Heath, we will see you guys then. Have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend as Alabama baseball is on the road at Kentucky.